Seems like old times. A kid gets killed by another kid, and immediately everyone jumps to conclusions. Evidently, we learned nothing from the Kyle RIttenhouse case, where people on both sides completely fouled up the events of what happened and the applicable laws. And yeah, in that case, the left was far worse at it. And in fact, they couldn't get anything right. Now we have Karmelo Anthony's stabbing of Austin Metcalf, and the same problems in reasoning have surfaced yet again. And of course, interpretations fall right down party, and in this case, racial lines. Some people want Karmelo Anthony to be innocent or guilty, not because of the facts of the case, but rather to oblige their political worldviews. Let's be clear. If you weren't there and didn't see it happen, then you really don't know what happened. And if you haven't checked out Texas's laws on self-defense and weapons possession, then you don't know anything about either of those either. I'm now going to read an article about this stabbing and demonstrate how I interpret the news. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With cold, blunt analysis cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's time for the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
All right. Box 9, KMSP. Frisco track meet stabbing suspect. I did it. No, that is not a confession. He's not admitting to a crime. He's admitting to the elements of a crime. He's claiming self-defense, and therefore he has to acknowledge that he did do the stabbing. So the fact that he's admitting to stabbing Metcalf actually works in his favor here. Now, whether it's self-defense or not, that's a bigger question. Okay, the brief. The 17-year-old suspect accused of fatally stabbing another student at a Frisco ISD track meet admitted to the crime because he put his hands on me, according to an arrest report. He did not admit to the crime. He admitted to the elements of the crime. Big difference. This is an affirmative defense. You cannot claim an affirmative defense unless you admit to the elements of the crime. A jury could find him not guilty of committing the crime, even though he admitted to the elements of the crime. As far as he put his hands on me, that's not very strong. If you're a Karmelo Anthony fan, you'd better hope that his defense is stronger than that. Okay? But what does he put his hands on me mean? I don't know. It could be very serious, warranting deadly force, or maybe it doesn't. But he put his hands on me doesn't imply that the attack that he was defending himself was very serious. But again, we don't know. Witnesses told police the two students got into a fight over where the suspect was sitting. They saw the suspect pull a knife out of his bag after the victim tried to push him out of that space. Now, witnesses told police that doesn't mean that they were truthful. We've seen this before with Michael Brown. There were tons of witnesses that came forward and said, oh yeah, he had his hands up when that pig shot him, when in reality he did not have his hands up. They lied, and lots of them lied. Some of them admitted to lying. Others, when asked to go to the grand jury and testify, refused. And many changed their testimonies completely. Why did they lie? Well, they saw a white cop and they figured, hey, here's an opportunity to get a white cop convicted. They didn't care whether the white cop was innocent or not. So we do know that witnesses will lie if it meets their political allegiances. Did that happen here? Don't know. It says here, they saw the suspect pull a knife out of the bag after the victim tried to push him out of the space. Is he a victim or an aggressor? Well, that's why we have trials, right? We'll find out if Austin Metcalf was a victim or the aggressor, depending on what facts come out. Will the judge allow Metcalf to be called a victim? He shouldn't. This is a self-defense trial. Therefore, allowing the person killed to be called a victim implies that the accused committed a crime. Therefore, the judge shouldn't allow Metcalf to be called a victim. However, it's a different judge. and every judge has their own protocols. As long as the judge follows the normal protocols, I have no issue with it. Although no judge should allow the descendants in a self-defense trial to be called victims, in my opinion. And what do we mean by push him out of the space? How hard was the push? Don't know. While being arrested, the suspect asked officers if what happened could be considered self-defense, and the officers had better not have said anything. Because if they start providing their opinions on what constitutes self-defense, that could change his testimony on what happened. Well, if you threatened them before you pulled the knife out, that could compromise your self-defense claim. Guess what the defendant's going to do? So you see, the police should be quiet there. What they should say is, you need to contact your lawyer. Because at that point, the officers would be acting as lawyers for the accused. They can't do that. The 17-year-old accused of fatally stabbing a Frisco student athlete during a track meet allegedly admitted to the crime. No, he didn't. He admitted to the elements of the crime, as I said before. What we know. On Wednesday morning, 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, a junior at Memorial High School in Frisco, was killed at a UIL District 11-5A track meet at Kuykendall Stadium. Yes, we do know that Karmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf. Yes, you could call Karmelo a killer. You can give him that nickname if you want. That doesn't make him guilty. We saw that with Kyle RIttenhouse. Oh, Killer Kyle. Yeah, we do know that Kyle killed 2 men. That doesn't make him guilty. But for some reason, the left can't figure that out. Oh, they'll figure it out for this case, however. Because they want Karmelo Anthony to be innocent, oh, they'll understand that point beautifully. But when it came to Kyle, they couldn't figure it out. Police said a student from Centennial High School in Frisco, 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, stabbed Metcalf in the chest during a fight. Anthony was arrested and is now charged with first-degree murder. How many times did we hear Auntie Kyle say, well, they wouldn't have arrested him if he hadn't done anything wrong. They wouldn't have charged him unless he had done something wrong. We heard it a million times. Okay, Karmelo Anthony has been arrested. He's been charged with first-degree murder. That doesn't make him guilty. So he's in the Collin County Jail on a $1 million bond. Kyle RIttenhouse was on $2 million bond, but he killed 2 people. So $1 million per person, that's about right. Crystal Kaiser, a black female, killed 1 person and was given a $1 million bond, but then it was reduced to like $250,000. There are plenty of examples of black defendants getting off on relatively light bonds. There's no race involved here. $1 million bond is about right. What we don't know, it's still not clear how Anthony was able to bring a knife into the Frisco ISD Stadium or why he had it with him. Okay? Why he had it with him could point to intent. Was he anticipating getting into a fight? That could undermine his self-defense claim. Whether or not the knife was legal or not to have is of no relevance at all. He could be in illegal possession of the knife and still claim self-defense. However, he could still face charges for having an illegal weapon on school grounds. I haven't looked into the state laws, but I would suspect that Texas does not allow students to carry knives onto school property. This was a track meet. I would assume that the same laws apply to those as like classroom instruction. So I would put my money on the fact that he was in illegal possession of the knife. He could face charges for that. But that doesn't mean that he didn't act in self-defense. What we know, a newly released arrest report, which I would love to have, details the interactions police had with Anthony in the moments following the fatal stabbing. According to the court document, which I would love to have, witnesses pointed him out to a school resource officer who was the first to arrive on the scene. The officer spotted Anthony on the north end of the track. Now, Anthony didn't go to the police. Kyle tried to, but a mob stopped him. Anthony didn't, but I don't think that says much about his self-defense claim. And I'm not sending a kid to prison simply because of that. I gave the suspect instructions to keep his hands up in the air. During this time, the suspect said verbally out loud, "I was protecting myself," the report states. Okay, he's claiming he was protecting himself. That doesn't make it true. I mean, he could have fabricated that after the fact to try to get out of a murder. However, maybe it is true. We don't know. But just because he said it doesn't make it so. The suspect also told the officer, "He put his hands on me." Again, if you're going to claim self-defense, you'd better have something stronger than that. He put his hands on me? So what? Now, what does the law say? Pretty much in every state, you cannot use deadly force unless you fear serious bodily injury. And that fear has to be reasonable. He put his hands on me. Did you fear serious bodily injury because of that? Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But that's what really matters here. The fact that he's black, not an issue. The fact that he had an illegal weapon, not an issue. And by the way, it may come out that Austin Metcalf was the primary aggressor. In other words, he initiated the conflict. That doesn't make it okay to kill him. Self-defense is very clear. You have to fear serious bodily injury. You cannot use self-defense to excuse a retaliation. After the officer mentioned to others that he had the alleged suspect in custody, the report states Anthony said, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Okay, so he is going to score some brownie points there for honesty. However, it has no bearing on his self-defense claim. He has to admit that he did it to claim self-defense. "He put his hands on me. I told him not to," Anthony continued as officers walked him out of the stadium in handcuffs to the squad car. I'm telling you, if that is all he said, he's in trouble. I mean, yeah, you can fabricate something after the fact, but what he told the officers at that time is going to play heavily in the court record. The jury is going to place very heavy weight on this. And "he put his hands on me, I told him not to," is not very strong. That's really weak. So what? Again, self-defense does not mean you can retaliate against somebody. You have to fear serious bodily injury. And nothing he has said here tells me that's what he's claiming. But who knows? Maybe he's going to change his story. Or maybe he said more than that, and that's all we're hearing. The report states Anthony also asked the officers, "Is he going to be okay?" Okay, well, that works in his favor a little bit, shows concern. And if he's convicted, that will also play a role in sentencing. He showed remorse. He showed concern for his victim. Witness statements. Oh boy. The arrest report also provides details from several witnesses about the events leading up to the stabbing. First, Memorial High School witness. A member of the Memorial High School track team told police he was sitting under the Memorial High School pop-up tent with the rest of the team. The victim and the suspect were sitting nearby. Now keep in mind, this is a little stronger than the typical "I heard that," okay? This is a witness telling the police what he saw. But keep in mind also, from Michael Brown, we know witnesses lie, and they also can be mistaken. Anthony was from Centennial High School and was sitting under the Memorial High School tent. The victim had told Anthony that he needed to move out from under their team's tent, and Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and proceeded to tell the victim, "Touch me and see what happens." Ooh, that doesn't sound good at all. If it's true. No one really thought Anthony really had any weapons in his bag, and the victim proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told the victim to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, the victim grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what the witness recalled as a black knife and stabbed the victim once in the chest and then ran away. Now, if this witness's testimony is right, then Anthony's in some serious trouble here. One of the issues that we have is that you have a deadly weapon in a bag, but your victim, put victims in quotes, the person you're stabbing doesn't know it. And so you can end up being much more aggressive, knowing that you always have that backup in that bag to save your butt if the other person tries anything. The witness did not know Anthony, but he knew he was a Centennial student. Okay, that lends credence to the witness's statement. Second Memorial High School witness. Police pulled the victim's twin brother and a second Memorial High School track team member into the locker room to take their statements because it was raining heavily at the time. Yeah, whatever. The officer who interviewed them noted that Hunter Metcalf was still hysterical and could not talk. Okay, that means nothing as far as guilt or innocence goes. I attempted to ask them both what had happened. I could not really get anything out of Hunter, but the second witness stated he wanted to speak. I asked him what happened, and he stated they were all sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High School tent. There doesn't seem to be any dispute about that. When another male, who he did not know, walked over and sat under the tent. The witness then said the victim told this male that since he did not go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Basically, it probably went down like this. Hey, what the hell are you doing here? Hey, this is our tent. Get the hell out of here. Okay? Now, that's pretty aggressive. However, there's nothing illegal about that. And it certainly does not warrant deadly force or even force at all. The victim and the male went back and forth, and then the victim stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. The witness had said during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag he had. It was at this time the male took out a knife and stabbed the victim and then left the scene. Okay, now, we have here the victim, we're just going to go ahead and call him that, pushing Anthony. Even if it was a hard shove, I don't think that that warrants deadly force. If somebody pushes me hard, I seriously don't fear bodily injury. Now, if I'm 80 years old, and I have a heart condition or something, then yeah, that might instill fear of serious bodily injury to me. But Karmelo Anthony is 17 and is a track athlete. Being shoved is not exactly the scariest thing that can happen to him. So, for his sake, this had better not be what happened. The arrest report also identified about 24 other student athletes from various Frisco ISD high schools and 4 coaches who said they witnessed the stabbing. There's plenty of people that saw what happened. What we know. The victim's family previously told Fox 4 that the fatal stabbing happened just as it was starting to rain at the track meet. Got to be careful about victims' family. They're biased. Doesn't mean that they're wrong, but they do have a strong motive to say that which paints their kids in a positive light. So what can we say? Well, so far, if the witnesses' testimonies are correct, Karmelo is going to have to come up with a better defense than what we're hearing so far. His lawyer is going to have to think hard about this one. Whatever it is that Austin did, it had to be enough that would inflict fear of serious bodily injury to a typical 17-year-old track athlete. And, okay. But you know what? Life is full of surprises. We don't know. As more facts come out, we'll find out more and more. But I would also caution everybody about being careful on social media. A lot of people are claiming a lot of really stupid things out there. I've even seen it where Austin and Karmelo got into a fight the previous night at a party. They went to different high schools. I doubt they knew each other. But people are just fabricating things because they are trying to save Karmelo's skin. But the only thing that can save him is the evidence. We'll see. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.